It's a warm summer morning in Adelaide, South Australia. January 26, 1966, Australia Day. The air is thick with heat, the kind that makes your skin stick to the car seats and your hair cling to your forehead. Families are flocking to the beach, kids are running wild, and the smell of sunscreen and salty waves fills the air. In a quiet suburb called Somerton Park, three siblings, Jane Beaumont, 9 years old, Arnna, 7, and little Grant, just 4, are getting ready for a day out. It's a routine trip, a 5-minute bus ride to Glenelg Beach, a place they've been to countless times before. Their mom, Nancy, hands Jane some coins, 8 shillings and 6 pence for bus fare and lunch. She watches them climb onto the bus, waving as it pulls away. It's 8:45 a.m. Nancy has no way of knowing that this is the last time she'll ever see her children. This is the story of the Beaumont children, one of Australia's most haunting mysteries. Jane, Arnna, and Grant vanished without a trace from Glenelg Beach that day, sparking a case that's gripped the nation for nearly 6 decades. Witnesses saw them with a tall blond man who seemed friendly, familiar even. But who was he? What happened to those kids? And why, after all these years, do we still have no answers? I'm diving deep into this case, piecing together the timeline, the suspects, the theories, and the heartbreak that changed Australia forever. Let's go back to that fateful day and try to figure out what happened to the Beaumont children. In 1966, Australia is a different place. Kids roam free, no helicopter parents hovering over them. It's normal for a 9-year-old like Jane Beaumont to take her younger siblings, Arnna and Grant, to the beach unsupervised. That's just how it was. You'd give your kids a few coins, send them off to play, and trust they'd come home by lunch. The world felt safer back then, or at least, people thought it was. The Beaumont family lived at 109 Harding Street in Somerton Park, a sleepy suburb not far from Glenelg Beach. Jane, the eldest, was bright, responsible, and protective of her siblings. Arnna was lively, a bit cheeky, and Grant, the baby of the family, was just a toddler, tagging along with his big sisters. Their parents, Jim and Nancy Beaumont, were a typical couple. Jim was a former serviceman turned taxi driver, and Nancy was a devoted mom. They'd married in 1955, and their kids were their world. On January 25, the day before, Jim had dropped the kids off at Glenelg Beach during a heatwave. They came home safe and sound, so when they begged to go again on Australia Day, Nancy didn't think twice. It was too hot to walk, so they took the bus, leaving at 8:45 a.m. Jane was in charge, carrying a copy of Little Women and the money for their day out. They were expected back by noon, maybe 2 p.m. at the latest. Glenelg Beach was buzzing that morning. It was a public holiday, and families packed the shoreline. Collie Reserve, a grassy area near the beach, was full of kids playing under sprinklers. The Beaumont kids arrived around 10 a.m., and witnesses later confirmed they were there, splashing around, carefree. But then, something strange happened. Around midday, multiple people reported seeing the Beaumont children with a man. He was tall, thin, with a suntan complexion and short blonde or light brown hair. He looked to be in his mid-30s, maybe a bit older, and was wearing a blue Speedo-style swimsuit. Witnesses said the kids seemed comfortable with him, laughing and playing like they knew him. One person saw them at Collie Reserve, another near the changing rooms. A shopkeeper at Wenzel's Bakery on Mosley Street, just across from the bus stop, said Jane came in around noon to buy pasties and a meat pie with a £1 note. That raised a red flag. Nancy was certain she'd only given Jane 6 shillings, nowhere near enough for a £1 note, and the kids never bought meat pies, so where did the money come from? And why were they buying something out of the ordinary? By 12:15 p.m., witnesses saw the kids and the man leaving the beach together, heading toward Jetty Road. That's the last confirmed sighting. When noon came and went, Nancy wasn't too worried at first. Maybe they missed the bus. But when 2 p.m. rolled around and they still weren't home, panic started to set in. Jim got back from a work trip around 3 p.m., and together they scoured Glenelg, driving up and down the streets, calling out for their kids. By 5:30 p.m., they contacted the police. What followed was one of the biggest searches in Australian history. Police, volunteers, even the Navy and Air Force combed the beach, the dunes, the storm drains, and nearby construction sites. They drained the boat harbor, checked sheds, garages, and vacant lots. Nothing. Not a scrap of clothing, not a page from Jane's book, not a single clue. The Beaumont children had vanished into thin air. This wasn't just a missing persons case. It was a wake-up call for Australia. The idea that 3 kids could disappear in broad daylight, in a crowded place, with no one noticing a struggle, it shattered the sense of safety people took for granted. But who was the man seen with them? And what did he do with Jane, Arnna, and Grant? The police didn't waste time. By 7:20 p.m. on January 26, the South Australian police log noted the children were missing, reported by Jim Beaumont himself. Officers searched the beach, Brighton, West Beach, and Henley Beach. They checked boats, lawns, and even called radio stations to broadcast alerts. Volunteers poured in, and the community rallied. But the clock was ticking, and every hour without a lead made the case feel colder. Witnesses were the key early on. Several people described the tall, blond man with a thin face and athletic build. A composite sketch was released, plastered across newspapers and TV screens. One witness said the kid seemed relaxed and trusting around him, which was odd because Jane was shy and fiercely protective of her siblings. Former detective Bill Hayes, who worked on the case years later, believed the kids must have met this man before. Arnna had once told Nancy that Jane had got a boyfriend down the beach, which Nancy brushed off as a playful joke. Now, it felt like a chilling clue. Had this man been grooming the kids, earning their trust over multiple visits? The £1 note was another puzzle. Nancy was adamant she'd only given Jane 6 shillings. So where did the extra money come from? Detectives theorized the man might have given it to them, maybe to buy their trust or to make himself look helpful. One witness even reported seeing the man asking people if they'd seen the kids' money, claiming it was missing. Was he setting up a story to seem like a hero, or was it a ruse to cover his tracks? The police followed every lead. They interviewed hundreds of people, chased down over 1,000 reported sightings, and searched everywhere from Adelaide's suburbs to the outback. But the trail was frustratingly thin. No one saw a struggle, no one heard a scream. The kids' belongings, Jane's book, their clothes, and their shoes were never found. It was like they'd been erased. Desperate for answers, the Beaumonts turned to unconventional help. In November 1966, a local businessman paid to fly in Dutch clairvoyant Gerard Croiset. He was a big deal at the time, known for helping solve missing persons cases in Europe. Croiset claimed the kids were buried under a newly built warehouse in Somerton Park. The community raised money to dig it up, against police advice. They found nothing. Croiset's visions were a bust, but they weren't the last false hope the Beaumonts would face. 2 years later, in 1968, the family received 2 letters. The first was supposedly from Jane, saying she and her siblings were safe with a guardian. The second, from the alleged guardian, offered to return the kids at a meeting spot. Jim and Nancy showed up, tailed by a police detective. No one came. A third letter arrived, claiming the guardian spotted the detective and backed out. In 1981, handwriting experts thought the first letter might be Jane's, but by 1992, forensic analysis revealed they were written by a man who later admitted it was a cruel prank. Imagine the Beaumonts' pain. Hope dangled in front of them, only to be ripped away. The investigation dragged on, but the lack of physical evidence was maddening. No bodies, no clothes, no witnesses to an abduction. The police began to suspect foul play early on, dismissing the idea of an accident like drowning or a cave-in. The kids were too visible, too accounted for, to have just wandered off. But without a crime scene, they were chasing shadows. Over the years, several names have been linked to the Beaumont case. None have been definitively tied to the crime, but each one offers a glimpse into the darkness that might have swallowed those kids. Let's break them down. First up is Bevan Spencer von Einem, a convicted murderer serving life for the 1984 killing of 15-year-old Richard Kelvin. In the 1970s, a man known only as Mr. B told police von Einem confessed to killing the Beaumont children. According to Mr. B, von Einem said he'd performed brilliant surgery on them, connecting their bodies in some grotesque experiment. One child supposedly died during the procedure, so he killed the others and dumped them in bushland south of Adelaide. Von Einem was a depraved character. He was known to frequent Glenelg Beach, allegedly to perv on kids in the changing rooms. He matched the sketch somewhat: tall, thin, light hair. But there's a problem. In 1966, von Einem was only 20 or 21, much younger than the mid-30s man described by witnesses. Mr. B was considered reliable by some detectives, but his story had inconsistencies. For example, his claims about surgical experiments didn't align with known facts about the Beaumont case, and no evidence placed von Einem at Glenelg that day. Police investigated him, but couldn't make it stick. He's still a name that comes up, but he's far from a perfect fit. Next is Derek Percy, one of Australia's most notorious child killers. Percy was convicted of murdering 12-year-old Yvonne Tuohy in Victoria in 1969, and supposedly 8 other children, though he was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He admitted to being in Glenelg on a family trip in 1966 when he was just 17. That's another age mismatch, too young for the suspect. Percy also had a history of blackouts and claimed he couldn't remember if he took the Beaumonts. He had no car, no clear connection to Adelaide, and no evidence ties him directly to the case. Still, his name lingers because of his horrific track record. Arthur Stanley Brown is another chilling possibility. In 1998, he was charged with the 1970 murders of sisters Judith and Susan McKay in Queensland. He was 53 in 1966, older than the suspect, but he bore a striking resemblance to the police sketch. The problem? No one could place him in Adelaide at the time. Brown died in 2002, and the case against him for the Mackay murders fell apart due to his dementia. His similarity to the sketch keeps him in the conversation, but it's more speculation than substance. Then there's Alan Anthony Monroe, a former scoutmaster convicted of multiple child sex offenses between 1962 and 1983. In 2015, Alan Max McIntyre, a man cleared of involvement in the Beaumont case, claimed Monroe brought the children's bodies to his house in the trunk of his car. McIntyre's kids backed this up, saying they saw bodies but mistook Arnna for a boy because of her short hair. A 1966 diary, handed to police in 2017, allegedly placed Monroe near Glenelg Beach that day. McIntyre also claimed Monroe and his father came home upset, with sand and blood in the car. His sister went further, saying she saw a bloodied shirt and the bodies. Monroe was a predator, no question. He lived in Glenelg in 1966 and was convicted of abusing kids in the area, but police found no hard evidence linking him to the Beaumonts. His lawyer called the accusations fanciful. The diary and McIntyre's claims are intriguing, but without physical evidence, they're just another lead that fizzled out. The most compelling suspect, at least in recent years, is Harry Phipps, a wealthy factory owner who lived just 300 meters from Glenelg Beach. Phipps came to light in 2013, thanks to a book called The Satin Man by Alan Whitaker and Stuart Mullins. Phipps' son Hayden claimed he saw the Beaumont children at their family home on January 26, 1966. He also said his father abused him as a child, painting Phipps as a predator. 2 brothers claim Phipps paid them to dig a grave-sized hole at his Castalloy factory in North Plympton over the Australia Day weekend. Phipps was known to carry £1 notes, matching the money Jane used at the bakery. A white-clipped purse, similar to Jane's, was found in the Phipps basement, but his wife claimed it came from an op shop, and it vanished before police could examine it. In 2013, police excavated the factory after ground-penetrating radar found an anomaly. They found nothing but animal bones. In 2018, another dig turned up the same. In February 2025, a third excavation, funded privately and led by MP Frank Pangallo, searched the site again. Still, nothing. Phipps died in 2004, and while he's the best suspect, according to Whitaker, there's no concrete evidence tying him to the crime. His proximity to the beach, his wealth, and his alleged behavior make him a strong candidate, but it's still a theory. These suspects, von Einem, Percy, Brown, Monroe, and Phipps, each have their believers, but none have been proven guilty. The blond man from Collie Reserve remains a ghost, his identity as elusive as the children's fate. So what happened to Jane, Arnna, and Grant? The lack of evidence has fueled endless theories, some plausible, others straight out of a conspiracy subreddit. Let's walk through the main ones. The prevailing theory, and the one I lean toward, is that the children were abducted and murdered by the tall, blond man. Witnesses saw them leave the beach with him, and their comfort suggests he wasn't a stranger. Maybe he'd met them before, built trust over time. The £1 note and the meat pie purchase point to someone manipulating them, maybe offering money to lure them away. The fact that no one saw a struggle could mean they went willingly, at least at first. After that, he could have taken them to a car, a house, or somewhere isolated. The bodies were never found, which suggests a calculated effort to hide them, maybe in the bushland south of Adelaide, as von Einem allegedly claimed, or in a place like Phipps Factory. Another theory, less likely but persistent, is that the kids were taken for human trafficking. Some speculate they were smuggled out of Australia, sold, or hidden overseas. There were rumored sightings of the kids as adults in places like New Zealand or Europe, but none panned out. This theory struggles because abducting 3 kids together is risky and unusual, and there's no evidence of a trafficking ring operating in Adelaide at the time. The Beaumont case happened during a string of child abductions in Australia. The 1965 Wanda Beach murders, the 1973 Adelaide Oval abductions of Joanne Ratcliffe and Kirst Gordon, and other cases have led some to believe a serial killer was active. Arthur Stanley Brown, for example, was linked to the Mackay sisters' murders, and the Adelaide Oval case shares similarities with the Beaumonts, kids vanishing in public with a sketchy man nearby. But no single killer has been tied to all these cases, and the evidence is circumstantial at best. Early on, police considered the possibility that the kids drowned or got trapped in a cave-in, but the multiple witness sightings, especially with the blond man, make this unlikely. The kids were accounted for well into the afternoon, and no bodies washed up or were found in the dunes. The case has been plagued by false leads. The 1968 letters were a cruel hoax. Psychics like Croiset led searches to dead ends. Even recent excavations, like the 2025 dig, have turned up nothing. The lack of closure has made the case a magnet for speculation, from satanic cults to government cover-ups. Most of these are nonsense, born out of desperation for answers. He could have been a predator like Phipps or Monroe, someone local who blended in. But where he took them, what he did, and where their bodies are, that's the part we may never know. The ocean's big, the outback's bigger, and 1966 was a long time ago. The Beaumont case didn't just break a family, it broke Australia's sense of innocence. Before 1966, parents didn't think twice about letting kids play unsupervised. After, stranger danger became a household term. The case led to new child safety policies like stricter supervision and public awareness campaigns. It also changed how police handled missing persons cases, with faster responses and better coordination. For Jim and Nancy Beaumont, the pain was unimaginable. They stayed in their Somerton Park home for decades, hoping their kids would walk through the door. They kept their bedrooms untouched, a heartbreaking shrine to their lost children. The media hounded them, and pranksters tormented them with fake letters and calls. Nancy was sedated just days after the disappearance, overwhelmed by grief. Jim broke down on national TV, begging for his kids' return. They stopped doing interviews after 1968, retreating into a private hell. They divorced years later, and Nancy passed away in 2019 at 92. Jim died in 2023 at 97, never knowing what happened. Their funeral notice said he was reunited in heaven with Jane, Arnna, and Grant. The case remains open, with a $1 million reward still offered by the South Australian government. Every few years, a new lead sparks hope, a diary, a dig, a witness coming forward. But so far, nothing has stuck. The 2025 excavation at Phipps Factory was the latest disappointment. Detective Superintendent Des Bray, who's worked the case for years, says it's still active. "We'll do anything humanly possible to find the Beaumont children," he said. But with each passing year, the chances grow slimmer. The blond man, if he's still alive, would be in his 90s now. Adelaide's had other mysteries. The Somerton man, the Adelaide Oval abductions. But the Beaumont case hits hardest. It's not just a crime story, it's a wound that never healed. For the Beaumonts, for their community, for Australia. Those kids were everyone's kids, and their loss changed everything. So where does that leave us? I think the answer's out there, buried in someone's memory or hidden in a place we haven't looked. Maybe it's in the dunes of Glenelg, or a factory in North Plimpton, or a patch of bushland no one searched. Or maybe it's gone forever, taken to the grave by the man in the blue Speedo. All we can do is keep asking, keep digging, keep remembering Jane, Arnna, and Grant. If you've got thoughts on this case, memories, or theories, drop them in the comments. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more deep dives into true crime's biggest mysteries. Until next time, stay safe out there.